Christina Ferguson. I'm the grants manager here at Childcare Aware of Kansas. We are really excited to bring you another round of sustainability grants that support your program and help you kind of navigate this difficult time through a pandemic. These funds are awarded through our partners at the Department for Children and Families. So we are really excited to be partnering with them once again and bringing you some support for your programs. So if everyone can just stay muted during this webinar, that would be fantastic. I know we will have quite a bit of people on here. So if you want to just stay muted, type any questions you have in the chat. We're going to actually get through our slides before we start answering questions. So we'll have a time at the end where we will answer your questions live, and then any other questions that didn't get answered, we will make sure to put them on our frequently asked question document, and that will be available hopefully next week on our website for you guys to reference. So we will go ahead and get started. Rose, do you want to go ahead and go to the next slide? And you are muted.
I apologize. Just to give a couple introductions. Today with us, we have Piper, a grant specialist, and Kathy, who is our lead grant navigator. Other members of our team are Christopher, Jan, and Vicky, who are all grant specialists, and myself, Rose, lead grant specialist. And then we also have Sierra, Brianna, and Gail, who are all grant navigators. These are names that you are probably going to become familiar with as you are navigating this grant process and looking for support. And these are the faces of the people who will be answering a lot of your questions. You are muted, Christina.
Sorry about that. So what are sustainability grants? The Child Care Sustainability Grants are awarded through the Kansas Department for Children and Families and distributed by Child Care Aware of Kansas. These provide sustainability to cover costs of operations and potential revenue losses. These funds may be used for normal operational expenses or expenses incurred to meet the CDC guidance to mitigate the spread of COVID, or expenses for other activities necessary to maintain or resume the operation of programs, including fixed costs and increases in operational expenses. Who is eligible to apply? So to become eligible, childcare programs must maintain an active permanent KDHE license, whether remaining open or temporarily closed. Drop-in care programs and programs with a temporary license are eligible if they were issued a license, a temporary license in Kansas on or before March 11th of 2021 and continue to maintain a temporary or permanent license. So if you have any questions about like if you're eligible, feel free to reach out to us, but typically if you have a permanent license, you would be eligible to apply. Next slide, please. So in addition to this, your facility must be in substantial compliance with KDHE licensing to be approved for this grant. Substantial compliance means that your program does not have any pending or open complaint survey or enforcement action. Your program is not operating under a consent agreement, and the most recent annual survey was closed as in compliance and complete, and there have not been any substantiated complaints on your program within the last 6 months. If you are ineligible the first time you apply, then you may reapply once you become in compliance later on. Once again, if you have any questions over if your program is in compliance or not, you can reach out to us. We do check KDHE's CLARIS website and follow up this definition. So, you know, if there's any discrepancies or anything, we would advise you to take that up with your KDHE surveyor.
What are some expenses that are covered in this grant? We have several different categories that are very similar to those that may have applied for Sustainability Grant Round 2. Those would be personal costs, and under those you're going to see salaries, employment tax, fringe benefits, relief given to families. Rent, mortgage, and utilities, that's going to cover rent, mortgage, and utilities, but it's also going to include maintenance, minor renovations, late fees, and insurance. Personal protective equipment, you're going to have your standard PPE equipment, background checks, and contract cleaning and training. For background checks, those fees are still waived to 2023, just so you're aware. Goods and services, you're going to have your advertising, classroom supplies, cleaning and sanitation supplies, food, liability and accident insurance, licensing fees, mileage, office supplies, and professional development. Purchases of or updates to equipment and supplies. So you'll just have standard equipment, health monitoring equipment, software, and other equipment and updates. Mental health supports are going to include your infant and early childhood mental health consultations, and then mental health consultations for you or your employees. We will have definitions next to each category when you are in the application. You will be able to see those as well. You can request a paper copy of these definitions. Important dates. The grant is going to launch Tuesday, March 1st. It will open at 8 a.m. We are going to be accepting these on a rolling basis. You must opt in to continue payments by the 5th of each month. Your first payment for March applicants will be April 29th, 2022. I think that's it on that slide.
All right, so our application is available electronically on your WLS profile. Multiple languages are available on these profiles, so you can change if English is not your first language. You may change up in the top to make the entire application your specific language. You may apply at any time during the period of March 1st, 2022 and November 30th, 2022. So your application approval will ensure your first payment for that following month. For subsequent months, programs must complete the monthly tracking forms each month and click that they want to opt in for the next payment. And if you don't opt in, then you will not be paid that following month. You can skip months. You can, opt in each month, and you would get that following month's payment. So you would have to do that by the 5th of each month, and that following month would be available once that previous month closes. So we will walk you through that in WLS and just show you what that looks like and how you would do that each month. So applications must be received in our office between March 1st and November 30th, 2022 at 5 p.m. So please take this into consideration when mailing in your application or completing online. We do have paper applications available if you choose to not do it on your WLS profile. These must be requested by calling our office or emailing our grants email, which is on the screen.
What we're going to do next is we're going to do a walkthrough demonstration on how to apply through WLS. When you have logged into your provider profile in WLS, you will see in the grants tab right here that we have available grants. When March 1st hits, this is when this will become available to you. You will go and you will click on the Sustainability Grant Round 3. Like all of our applications so far, we do have some basic information that is auto-populated into your application. We encourage you all to make sure that every spellings are correct, email addresses are correct, phone numbers, in case other people's contact information that might be helping you with your profile gets put in here. Make sure that all that information is correct for the correct person. The next is some basic reporting questions. These questions do not change your eligibility to receive grant funding. These are specifically for reporting purposes only. You will go through and you will answer these questions. Once you've completed that, you will come down to the enrollment section of our application. Please make sure that everything is filled out to completion. If you have a 0 that needs to be entered because you do not have openings, or maybe you don't serve children in that age range, please make sure that you put in a 0. Your application will not save unless all fields have been completed. Once you've completed that section, you're going to come down and you're going to see some basic information about this grant. This is also where you are going to see the information on payment and what those categories look like. Past that is where you're going to start filling out which categories best fits your needs and what you want to utilize this grant funding for. Fortunately for this grant, we are not requiring you to stick with the categories that you choose. We want you to choose the categories that do best fit your needs, but we do know that through this grant, it's going to be over so many months that needs are going to change. So you do have freedom to select categories later on that you may not have selected in the application process. After you've completed that section, you're going to come down to the acknowledgements. Please read through these thoroughly. We want you to understand what is required of this grant. That would be making sure that you understand the important dates and that you understand about the monthly tracking forms and the opting in, and that these are requirements of this application. Once you've thoroughly read those and acknowledged each one, you will come down to the next portion. If you have filled out an application with us for round 2 or round 1, there is a large possibility that things will auto-populate for you. We do need you to make sure that you read through this information and that everything is still accurate. We understand that banking information changes, addresses can change, and so on and so forth. And so we really want to make sure that all this information is correct. So then when you are getting either your check or direct deposit, that it's going to the correct person. When your W-9 information, we want to make sure that those W-2s are created correctly for your program. I also want to mention with this check box, if you're wanting to do a mailed check, your check will be made and sent to you on the 29th of April or the last day of each month. Due to mail, it might be a week or 2 before you get that check. But those are when checks will be cut, is when those will be mailed. The last portion of the application is just certifying that the information is correct. You will put your program name, the name of your authorized representative that is filling out this application, along with, if you just type in your signature, and then the date. To submit your application, you have to click this green button at the bottom. When you click submit, you will see that there is a notification box that comes up and it says, "Thank you for submitting your application. Your application is final and no changes can be made at this time." You will then click OK, and it will bring you back to the beginning of the grants tab. You will also see that your application has been submitted successfully, and then you will click OK. That's how you know your application has been submitted correctly. You will get a notification box if you have not completed the application to its fullest extent. You will receive something in the top just like that that tells you that information.
All right, so the part that you've all been waiting for, the payment amounts. So these will be based on your licensed capacity. So family and group childcare homes will receive $1,800 per month up to 9 months. Other programs with a licensed capacity 24 or less will receive $3,600 per month up to 9 months. Licensed capacity between 25 and 99 children will receive $9,000 per month for up to 9 months. And licensed capacity 100 or more children will get $18,000 per month for up to 9 months. There will be an additional 5 months of payments after November. So we will kind of reevaluate how much funding is left based on how many programs do apply. And then we will determine those amounts and let you know later. But you will have to apply by November 30th, 2022 to receive those 5 additional months. Payments will start the month after you apply. So if you apply in March, your payment will start in April. If you apply in July, your payment will start in August. If you do start getting payments later on in the process, they will not backdate. So you will not get additional payments if you apply 4 months into the process. So in order to get all 9 payments, you will have to apply and be approved before that April payment. So I think I covered everything in regards to payment. So in order to get your payments, you do have to select that opt-in button. And you do have the ability to opt out. Like for an example, someone would opt out if they had a summer program and they don't have expenses that go throughout the year. Those programs might want to opt out. So that would just be an example of when someone wouldn't want to opt into all of the payments. And I think that's all for that one.
Expenses and monthly tracking forms. Expenses must be reported by the 5th of each month on the monthly tracking form in your WLS profile. You may also request a paper version of this, but you need to make sure that it is still in our office by the 5th of each month. This also will need to include your opt-in. You may report any expenses from March 12th of 2020 through June 30th of 2023. All funds must be allocated within your monthly tracking forms and spent, or funds need to be returned by June 30th, 2023.
All right, receipt documentation. So receipts are not required for everyone that does get approved for this grant. Only 2% of applications will be selected for a random audit monthly. So those programs will be required to submit receipts to us. But even though you don't have to submit receipts to us, all receipts and supporting documentation must be maintained by you for a period of 5 years, and that is a grant requirement. So when you are asked to submit receipts, you must have on those receipts the vendor, the date of purchase, the purchase amount, and the item name in order for that receipt to be approved and accepted. I believe Rose is going to show us where those receipts are collected in your WLS profile.
When you're in your monthly tracking form, which can be found in these steps, you will go to the grants tab. You will go and you will find, let's see, I think my page didn't refresh. There it is. Okay, so when you come to your provider profile, you will see that you were approved for your grant. You are then going to click on it. This is where you are going to find the supplemental tabs. For any of those that have been previously approved for our previous grants are going to be familiar with this step. This is where you're going to see your application details, your notification letter, those monthly tracking form, and then so on and so forth. So to find where you can upload receipts, you are going to go to our monthly expenditure tracking tab. You will then see that this is where you enter in all the different expenses that you have occurred and want to report for this grant and their categories. This is also where you're going to be able to see some of those definitions. So if you have questions on where something might fit, this is going to be the best place to get that answer. You're going to scroll down, and this is where you're going to see your opt-in portion. And after that, you are going to see the monthly tracking receipts. This is primarily used for those that have been selected from our 2% of random audit providers. This is where we would expect them to upload these receipts. If they cannot do this here, they would send them to us via mail, fax, or email. To do this, you would click on this button right here in the right left that says Add New Receipt. You would then choose the information, your date of purchase, the amount, what category you are expending those into, the month, and then any notations. This could be explaining that it was a minor renovation, or you could explain that this was classroom supplies. You would then click on the choose file, you would click on your attachment, and then you would click save. Once you've clicked saved, it would then refresh and you would see your receipt listed here underneath the categories listed.
I will add to that, in your monthly tracking form, you must submit an expense amount in order to opt in for that next payment. So make sure that your balance is greater than 0, so that we are able to know what you're expending those funds on. So that opt-in button will not be available unless you do submit an expense amount.
Correct. You are not required to expend all funds that you receive your first month. But we do encourage you to be putting more than a penny, $1. Make sure these are actual amounts that you are actually spending in these categories. So if you were pulled for a random audit, you would be able to have those receipts available because you would know what those balances are that are accrued. In the next slide, we're going to show an example of a receipt. As you can see, in the left-hand corner, you can see that this is from Amazon. So it shows the vendor name. You're going to see that it says order placed February 7th, 2022. So it falls within our timeline. And then you can also see grand total here or here. Through the receipt, you can also see that it gives an explanation of what each item was and what their total was for those individual items. This is an excellent example of a receipt because it meets all of the requirements of what a receipt is. If you are having difficulty with having appropriate documentation or receipts, please make sure you're reaching out to your grant navigator and grant specialists.
I'm going to talk a little bit about the grant navigators. I am Kathy. I am the grant navigator in Region 1. We encourage you to reach out to your navigators in your region. We are here to help you navigate through this process. If you have questions, different things that we are helping providers with is we'll help you with the application. If you're not tech savvy and it's getting late in the application process and you need help to fill it out on the phone, we are more than happy to help you with that process. Helping you with documentation of expenses. If your program is audited and you have questions on what it is that we do need for that documentation, we can walk you through that process. We don't want that to be a stressor for you. We are here to help you through that process and make sure that it is correct. We will not allow you to fail if you work with us on that audit process. Other things are helping find additional resources to help your program. Maybe you can't think of something that to spend those funds on, or you're getting down to the end and you're like, I don't have an expense. Do you have ideas? We can communicate and talk through that process to find good things for you to claim. Individual assistance, maybe there's something else that you need help with. We can help find resources for you and your program. So we do. Oh, and you can also reach out by phone, email. You can submit a request on our website. It will go to your correct navigator. We will reach out to you within 2 business days. So I really encourage you to find out who your navigator is in your region, reach out to them. They are more than willing to help you through this process and make sure that you are successful.
Thank you, Kathy. Those navigators are extremely helpful, and all of those ladies are a pleasure to work with. So reach out to them if you haven't. All right. Next, we will just go over some questions that are being asked in the chat. So if you have a specific question, go ahead and type it in the chat, and we can answer as many as we are able to live here today. We are going to have, oh, sorry. We are going to have a frequently asked question document on our website available after these webinars. Also, the recorded webinars will be posted on our website. There will be one in Spanish and one in English. And then we are planning to have monthly webinars available where providers can come in and get like a group technical assistance with our navigators, with our grant specialists. So you guys will be able to ask questions and walk through different parts of the grant process. So just know that those supports are going to be available to you as this is a pretty long grant process, and we want to make sure that you have access to the funds and can get them every month. All right, so Kathy and Piper, you will be reading off some of the questions, and Rose and I can help answer any that come our way.
Okay. I just want to also put out there that we will not be answering any questions on specific items. So I see several people asking about specific items. If you have questions on those, please reach out to the grants team or your navigator, and we will discuss those because they are case by case basis. So please reach out. One is, I am changing my license from family to group. Can I still apply?
Yes, as long as your temporary license is being transferred from one license to another, that will not affect your eligibility. You would just not, and those are in the same category, but if you're going from like a group childcare home to a small center, you would not be able to get the larger amount of funds until you are approved for that center. So transferring licenses is not an issue at all.
Can you clarify the date that was on one of the first slides? Was it a temporary license March 2021, or did you mean March 2022?
That would be March 2021. So it is based on the federal funding date. So basically, if you had a temp license at that time and you're now fully licensed, it won't make a difference because you have your full license. But if you have a temporary license, but you were not temporarily licensed by that date, then you would not qualify until you get a full license. So if there are any questions about when you got your temp license or anything like that, just reach out to us.
Our license capacity has changed, but it is not showing accurately on our childcare aware portal. How do we ensure this is updated prior to applying for this grant?
When we receive applications and we are going through that review process, part of that process is checking in Claris. We check for eligibility and making sure that you guys are in compliance with KDHE's good standing. And then we also look at license capacity. We know that those things can change and they can get missed in our updates. So we always go based off of what Claris states as capacity.
Will the grant funds be taxable?
Yes, this is taxable income, and we don't give any tax advice. So if you have any questions about that, just reach out to your accountant or your tax professional.
How far back can the receipts be dated?
Funds
March?
can be spent all the way back to March of 2020. So again, a very large window of when these funds can be spent. Sorry, Rose.
Well,
I
I'm
am-
used to, oops, sorry.
It's okay. I am eligible for the startup grant. Can I apply for both?
Yes, your eligibility does not affect any other grants that you are applying for.
Will unused grant funds need to be returned?
Yes, by June 30th of 2023.
Can you show where the opt-in button is again?
Absolutely. When you have been approved for your application, you will go to your provider profile and you will see approved grant applications. You will come down and you will then see, you will click on grant round 3, and then you will find the monthly expenditure tracking. This is where you're going to be able to see what your grant amount was, how much you've purchased, if you've refunded any funds, and then your balance amount. This is where you will be making those monthly entries into your monthly tracking form. You scroll down and you will see that this is where you will opt in or opt out for a payment. So let's say that you want to opt in for June, May, June, and you had applied in March. This one, your first one will automatically go, but this one, your May one, will not be available until after the 5th. So that's why that we give it a whole 30 days for you to be able to opt in, fill out those monthly tracking forms. But then if it is not done by the 5th, it will go to a no, and you're not able to go backwards and click those. But then the next month will then become available for you to choose whether you would like to opt in or opt out.
Can the same expenses be claimed each month, or does it need to be a different each month?
It can be the same expenses as long as they are not the same exact expenses. So let's say you claim your rent or mortgage each month. It can definitely be rent or mortgage each month, but it has to be different months. You cannot claim the same exact expense every month.
Can public nonprofit centers apply and qualify for these funds?
Yes, as long as they are licensed with KDHE licensing.
Will there be a 5-day grace period beyond the grant end date for grant expenses?
There will not, but if you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out to us.
You have until June 30th, 2023 to return unspent funds, but we quit receiving money in November 2022.
No,
This
you
is
will get, oh, go ahead, Rose.
This is because we will be reevaluating the remaining 5 months of funds that will be dispersed out to providers. Depending on how many providers apply, how much of those funds have been spent. We don't want to give a final dollar amount. Our funders do not want to give a final dollar amount of what those 5 months will look like. There will be 5 additional months after November 30th of continuing funds, and that's why we are going until June 30th of 2023.
Can you spread out a large expense over several months?
Absolutely.
Do you have to submit an impact story every month?
No, those will be required only once for the whole grant process.
So do I have to submit receipts each month or only if asked to upload?
Correct. You would only submit receipts if you were requested. We would send you a letter in the mail formally letting you know that you were selected as part of our 2% audit. If you were selected, then that is when you would submit those receipts. And if you have further questions at that time, that's when you would reach out to a grant navigator or a grant specialist for further assistance. But no, you are not required to submit receipts for this grant.
I just saw a question that said they were a little bit confused with the answer on the rent. So let's give an example. Let's say that you claim your March rent payment for your April expenses. Moving forward, for your May expenses, you cannot claim that March rent again, but you could claim your April rent. So it can be rent still every month, but it cannot be March rent every month.
Can taxes be taken out of the grant money? Can a provider ask for taxes to be taken out of grant money?
We do not do that.
Thank you.
Can we upload receipts if we aren't audited to keep track? Will they be stored for the 5 years on the website?
Absolutely. It's definitely encouraged. It helps with all these different grants that have become available. It's a great way to stay organized, and talking with your grant navigator, they have lots of different suggestions on how to stay organized as well. If uploading them to WLS is not a great option for you, they definitely have tips and tricks on how to stay organized with your receipts.
If a claim is substantiated, are you ineligible for this grant?
Each case is different. So we will evaluate that with Claris. And then if we have any more questions, we will get in touch with KDHE licensing to let us know if you are in substantial compliance.
Christina, I wonder if we should talk about past grant and now future eligibility.
Yes, absolutely. So our agency has come up with a plan where your past compliance with other grants with our agency could affect your eligibility for future grants. So if you do not submit all of your documentation when required for future grants, such as impact or sustainability 1 or 2, or you don't have all of your monthly expenditure tracking reported, then you would not be eligible for round 3 or any other current or future grant opportunities through Child Care Aware of Kansas. So definitely make sure that you have all of your documentation in so that you do not have to get a sanction on your program. So if you have a sanction, you will have to complete a variety of steps in order to be eligible to apply for future grants.
Can you show the payment slide one more time and talk about the breakdown of the size of the programs?
That will be on our website. So I just encourage you all to go look at our website, and we will have those on there.
How do we document a large purchase?
That would be something that you would work individually with a navigator on. They can talk about different ways to do that.
Does lack of applying for assistance affect the process? I did not apply for the first 2 rounds.
It does not.
All right. Well, I think that kind of concludes everything. If you have any specific questions or anything, you can send an email to our grants email. We also have a chat line available Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 with our grants team. So if you have any questions that could be answered pretty quickly, feel free to shoot them through there or give us a call. We really thank you for joining us today, and we are very excited to provide you these funds. And let us know if you have any additional questions or anything, any assistance.